but weekend a few conferences started play, and there were some very interesting games and a lot of very lopsided score lines throughout the entire league. But first of all, the match I attended and I broadcasted was Georgia Revolution hosting Greenville FC, and this is the second year in a row. Greenville opens their season at Georgia Revolution FC, and in past matches, Georgia Revolution won 3-1 at home, and then last year they went and had a 1-1 draw in Greenville. Very weird match. 90th minute own goal by the Revolution. The keeper just wasn't paying attention, and Greenville get away with a point. So kind of a weird game there last season. But this year, it was very interesting because Greenville came into the match and they only had 15 players they brought because they had a lot of D1 guys, and they didn't finish school yet. They didn't finish their finals, so they weren't able to come to the match. They only had 15 players that made the trip down to McDonough, Georgia, and only 3 of those players were listed as defenders. And so they played a 3-man back line all 90 minutes, and they actually performed very well. 2 of those guys are new players, and the third player in the back line wasn't a starter the entire season. So it was interesting to see how those guys gelled throughout the match. And they had a new player in Adrian Nunez who played at University of Northern Florida with Bill Elliott. Bill Elliott's actually the head coach of Chattanooga FC, so he's familiar with the Southeastern Conference playing style, and he tore it up at North Florida, and now he's transferring into Clemson, but he was available for Greenville FC because he's transferring from a D2 school to a D1 school, and Nunez was phenomenal. He played the ball at his feet very well. He's a great dribbler. He created a lot of their chances, and then they had another player on the opposite side of the midfield, Manny Perez, who played very well defensively in the midfield spot. They kind of struggled up top. They didn't get much action with their strikers, Lars Kalla and then Balistrasi. They're both new additions to the team. They didn't really impress me that much, but they are getting another Clemson striker in next week that's going to be available. So I think that'll spruce up their attack. But there is a team that are going to sit back and counterattack. They're not going to have much possession anyway. So they play a very counterattack style soccer. But it was a fun match to watch. Ended up 2-1 in favor of Greenville FC. Georgia Revolution dominated possession and all the chances, and they really dominated the match, except for 2 opportunities in a 6-minute period when they played forward, and their right back, Jack Gurr, likes to get up the field, and so does all the midfielders. And Georgia Revolution were vulnerable, and Nunez really hit them on the counter, and Nunez scored the first goal, and then Jamie North hit a great shot to put in the back of the net for Greenville. And then later on the match, Georgia Revolution, who they're missing their best center back, they're missing their best holding midfielder, which really changed how they can play once they allow those guys to get upfield with a holding midfielder. And they're missing a striker, and then two of their best strikers weren't match fit, so they only played 45 minutes. But when they came in the game, the entire momentum of the match shifted, and we got a goal from about 25 yards out from a former Myrtle Beach Mutiny player, Brandon Gamara. A great strike, and so that match ended up 2-1. I'm kind of rambling on about my team, but I'm very familiar with that match. It was a very entertaining match, one of the closer games of the weekend. But moving on to the only other Southeastern Conference matchup, Inter Nashville, who struggled to get all their players ICCs cleared from the NPSL. They didn't have a full roster, and they're missing some of their international players because of that. They won 4-1 against the former Atlanta Silverbacks team, now Atlanta SC. And it was a very pouring down rain, sloppy match. It was a lot of weird soccer. So the first goal for Inter Nashville, they just put in a simple cross into the box, and it went through the Atlanta's keeper's hands, Bryce Billington. And then later, all of Inter Nashville's goals were actually off of set pieces, and then Atlanta SC got a penalty kick. So nothing very impressive out of either one of those teams, and Georgia Revolution will play them next weekend in their new home at a private Christian school in Alpharetta, Georgia. And then moving on, we talked about this Hartford City matchup. They're going to play Boston City this past weekend, and they actually played the weekend before that as well, and it was a 3-3 draw, so we're expecting another very exciting match. But Hartford City absolutely ran away with this game. They won it 6-0, so a complete blowout by Hartford City, which surprised absolutely everyone. And there was actually a hat trick by Luke Olivero, and then a brace by Shaquille Sanchez, and then Daniel Jones added in the sixth goal. But a dominant performance, and they scored four of those goals in the first half, and then their last two goals they scored in the 48th and 51st minute. So they scored 6 goals in 51 minutes, and then the rest of the match they kind of sat back and took the foot off the gas a little bit. But that was a very surprising matchup. And then for some reason, the NPSL schedule is very strange at the beginning of the year. They play the next day on Sunday, May 5th. So they won 6-0 on Saturday. Then Hartford City plays Sunday, May 5th at 1 o'clock p.m. against Greater Luella Rough Diamonds, which is a very strange name, by the way. But they win that one 3-0 as well. So they're 9-0 on the weekend against two teams. And right now they're sitting at 7 points atop of the table. So Hartford City jump out to a magnificent lead, and Boston City is one of the better teams in the conferences. So to get a win and a draw against Boston City, Hartford City have the leg up right now. I mean, they have the complete advantage in their conference.
Yeah, it's definitely a shocking result because Boston are, obviously a well-established team, and Hartford are coming in this season, aren't they? Aren't they a new expansion team?
No, Hartford have been in the league, but they do have a new team coming into their territory, Hartford Athletic in the USL Championship. But Hartford Athletic had a huge home opener, getting 11,000 people out to their first match in USL Championship. So Hartford City, who are looking to go pro, they have pro ambitions. They're working on a stadium deal. They have a lot of things turning. The wheels are turning in Hartford, Connecticut. But they have some new competition with Hartford Athletic. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. We did see Hartford a little bit. Their attendance has dropped because people are focusing now on the Athletic, who aren't necessarily having a good season competitive-wise, but it was really cool to see a very large crowd, and we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see if they can keep it up attendance-wise the rest of the year and how it affects Hartford FC later on this season. And then some more action on the weekend. The Lone Star Conference kicked off with Dallas City FC traveling to Tyler FC in Dallas, get a 4-2 win. Not going to dive too deep into that match, but unfortunately, Ryan wasn't able to join us. He's the support group leader for Little Rock Rangers. They traveled to Tulsa, and they had their own registration problems. I know guys in Little Rock were very angry about that match, and they didn't want to open up against Tulsa a week before everyone else in their conference started play, but they lost 3-1 to Tulsa. And Tulsa Athletic, we talked about it on our last podcast, they build and break down their stadium each week. They're playing on a public park because the city took away their baseball stadium they converted and turned it into a BMX park. So Tulsa Athletic, they weren't the company that sets up their stadium, didn't set it up that week because of the potential rain. So they really didn't have a stadium. They're just playing on a field. And Ryan, hopefully next week, will talk more about this Taco Throwdown event that happened at the match. But Tulsa walk away with a big 3-1 win to open the season. And last year, Tulsa actually won the same opening match 6-1. So it's some improvement by Little Rock Rangers as they have the North Texas Rayados this weekend in Open Cup play. And then one of the closer matchups, another 2-1 game, AFC and Arbor, in the first match of the Great Lakes Conference, they get a 2-1 win over the Michigan Stars FC. So a decisive win for AFC and Arbor. They also have an Open Cup match coming up this week. And then moving to the Sunshine Conference, Miami United FC get another 4-0 win over Jacksonville Armada FC, and that was a team where like this is going to be a race between the Miami teams, Miami United, Miami FC, and maybe Jacksonville Armada. We'll see what they bring their first week in play. And Miami United just looked dominant, and so it looks like it's still going to be that two-team race between Miami FC and Miami United. But speaking of Miami FC, they get a 10-0 win at Storm FC. That is painful. And so I'll kind of explain that match a little bit. So Storm FC, they're a youth academy team, and they had 17 players registered. 4 of those 17 players were hurt. And then they had 14 more players that were not registered by U.S. Soccer or the NPSL yet. And this has been a problem across the board so far this year. This has been a problem every season. I thought it got a little bit better this year. I know with my team, Georgia Revolution, they're one of the first teams to put their roster in so it can get registered faster, and they still had one or two players that didn't clear ICCs. But we're going to discuss this a little bit before we dive into any more topics. We'll talk about the Duluth game after this. But so with NPSL soccer, the players have to take a little bit of initiative. They have to actually fill out their own registration forms and fill out their ICCs for their international clearances, and they have to get that turned into the league, and the teams have to do a little bit on their part as well. So it's a process for the team and the player, and they turn it into U.S. soccer. So a lot of these teams, Nashville and other teams, it wasn't U.S. soccer taking a long time. It was the fact that the players weren't taking initiative and actually filling these forms out and doing their due diligence and their part to get playing time. So it is a player's problem. U.S. soccer, and the NPSL do need to do a little bit better a job. But I think my biggest problem with this is the scheduling hassles. When you're having teams playing games weeks before any other team in your conference, and they don't have a full roster available to them, unlike the other teams in their league, that's a big issue for me because with Georgia Revolution FC, if they could have a holding midfielder and a star center back available for that match, that's a big difference maker against Greenville, and they're going to pick up 3 points instead of dropping 3. And also, when we're flying amateur players in across the country and they're not fully match fit, and we're playing with only a week of training, that's also crazy. So I think the scheduling is very difficult, and there's a lot of hoops to jump through. Going to discuss this really quickly. From a scheduling standpoint, the things you have to think of, we're playing a 2.5-month season plus playoffs. It's a very condensed schedule. We're trying to get 12 games in this short time frame, plus playoffs and all of that, and Open Cup play as well, along with if your team is in the Amateur Cup, which almost no NPSL teams are in the Amateur Cup, but you have that to jump through, and then you only have a few dates available, maybe 7, 8 Saturdays where you're playing, and then a few midweek games. And stadium availabilities, I know like Asheville City SC, they're in the NPSL Southeastern Conference. They play right above a minor league baseball. So for parking standpoint, the minor league baseball team picks all their dates they want to play throughout the summer, and the Asheville City cannot play on any of those days due to parking, and that's blocked off from when they can schedule from the county. So we're talking about you have to work with the available scheduling from teams to their venues, and then it's already a short time frame, so fitting these matches in is very hard. And sometimes what they have to do is they have to put these matches farther at the beginning of the season where D1 players can't play, and that hurt a lot of teams this weekend because D1 players can't play till next weekend. So that hurt a lot of teams, and then teams don't have enough time to turn their ICCs in for U.S. soccer and the NPSL to get a look at them. And then what you have to worry about is, well, what if we play more midweek games? Then you're risking injuries for the players, and fans aren't going to come out. I know with attendance numbers, sometimes they can get cut in half if you're playing on a Thursday rather than a Saturday. So there's a lot to take into consideration, and we see some of this with teams playing on Sundays instead of Saturdays, so they can accommodate the scheduling hassles and get around that a little bit. But it's a really tricky hoop to jump through with scheduling and trying to get these players in time to get as much playing time as possible.
I find it quite astonishing that nobody has, talking of initiative, as you said, that nobody at the organizational level of even, say, USASA hasn't put their foot down and gone, okay, right, well, this is how we do it, and we're going to, I don't know, organize it from the top down if people aren't capable of doing it from the bottom up.
What do you mean from the top down, bottom up? What would you suggest?
So the U.S. Adult Soccer Association organizing everything and making and beating people around the head to get them to actually submit these things in time rather than relying on, as you said, the players and then the clubs, all of which are running on shoestring budgets and or no budget. it just seems a little bit weird if you're the USASA and this is one of your premier competitions that you're not mustering people a little bit harder.
Yeah, and I had the same thought process when I was talking to one of the owners, and the owner said, "No, I like it like this because if a player's not going to take initiative to fill these forms out, then he's not a guy I want on my roster. He's not a guy that's going to show up the entire season and play for my team and show up the training sessions and put his heart into it and really help my club." And from a league standpoint, if a team's not going to put that initiative forward and do the simple things like filling out forms so we can play matches, that's not a team that's going to better my league and make my league a better place. So while I think there should be a little bit more leadership, you don't want to be hounding and kind of micromanaging the teams and the players because they're not going to grow for themselves. I think if you have a constant hand in everything a team and a player does, the players and teams can't organically grow. And I don't want to fabricate growth.
That's a very good point. You make a valid counter argument there. Definitely, if people aren't going to be bothered to do the paperwork, then they're probably not going to be bothered to turn up to practice every week. So I can see that argument entirely.
Yeah, it's a very tricky situation. I mean, this is one of the delicate, complex problems that you can't go on Twitter and find a solution in 140 characters in.
Yeah, yeah, very well put.
Yeah, but again, this is gonna be a little bit shorter episode today, but hopefully it's still all the enjoyable. We're gonna talk about kits for a little bit. There were two major kits that were announced this week. Greenville FC announced their home kits this year, and they have hoops, man, and these things are popping. One of my favorite kits in the North Divisions. I think it's probably my favorite, to be honest, right now. And they were rumored to announce their away kits Friday, and leading up to their season opener on the road against Georgia Revolution, and their kits didn't come in time. So they don't have away kits right now. They actually played in their home kits against Georgia Revolution, so I got to see these firsthand, and they are absolutely beautiful. If you haven't seen them yet, I'll try to describe them. Uh, Again, I know describing them on air and trying to get a real feel for the kits is difficult, but they have a dark green hoops and then offset with a lighter green, and then the back is the full dark green, and then on the shoulders they have they have gold accent colors, and then their logo has the accent gold around it to help it pop out, and they're rocking with the green shorts with the gold stripes, and then the green socks with the gold stripes as well. I think it's a solid look top to bottom.
Well, I'm slightly biased because one of the teams that I have supported most of my life play in blue and white hoops, and I kind of like seeing hoops on a kit for that reason. But yeah, I like it as well. I'm surprised that I like it because on first look I was like, hang on, is that not just a little bit too busy? But no, it actually works really nicely. It's really nicely balanced, I think. The light green and dark green, they're not too close to each other.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a huge step up from last year. And last year, one of the problems with their kit was they had a decent kit. It wasn't great. It's still the Adidas thing, and I think Adidas did a great job with these. But last year, they had a kind of ugly roundel, like not even a roundel, an oval orange sponsor splashed on the kit, and it just clashed with everything on there. So I think they have a huge upgrade. And the rumored kits, the away kits, are supposed to be all gold. So I'm very interested about those, but. The numbers were easy to see, so from a broadcast standpoint, I really did like these. They were sharp, but Chattanooga FC um, had a kit reveal party. And they were actually doing the kit reveal party at a huge free music festival in the downtown Chattanooga area. So it was a huge ordeal for them. They did a very nice show releasing these kits. They did a very good job. It was really cool to see. But the kits maybe a little lackluster. Again, Chattanooga FC is definitely not known for their kits. That hasn't been something that they've really went out and have been splashy about. It's been kind of simple. Their home kit looks the same about every year. It's a dark navy blue with a Volkswagen logo in the middle and usually a white collar or something like that. It's decent. It's not a bad kit, but it's nothing that you're going to get 1,000 retweets on like a Minneapolis City kit, or it's not going to break the internet or anything like that.
Yeah, and this year's home kit is, if it's the one I'm looking at, it's incredibly plain. It's literally like blue with the Volkswagen logo and not even the words, or like the Chattanooga logo is tiny on the one I'm looking at.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even notice that, but the logo is very, very small.
I get it. The sponsor's logo is always bigger than the club logo, but it's a tiny club logo. The VW logo is literally virtually the only feature on the jersey I'm looking at.
Yeah, I will
So
say that
yeah,
the VW logo does look good. I think it's one of the better looking sponsor logos in soccer, and a lot of Canadian teams are using it now in the new Canadian Premier League. I believe two teams are using the Volkswagen as a title sponsor now.
I mean, yeah, I went to the. This is apropos of nothing and not particularly soccer related, but I've been to their headquarters, and it's the branding is very, like you say, very clear. It's very obviously VW, and it always has been that kind of style. It's whoever designed that original logo deserves a lot of credit, because you know who it is instantly with that particular sponsor. But it's just that it looks like a VW t-shirt. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
it really does. Now their away kits are light sky blue, and I think that's a nice color. This they have little lines running across the jersey, so it looks weird on screen, to be honest. But I think it's a good looking kit. It's a good color. It's not gonna blow you away, but it's a solid looking color. I think it looks better than the home one.
Yeah, again, I mean the lines are they did that last year. They had like weird concentric circles on the home kit last year that looked a little bit like they were outlining the person's chest.
Yeah, I agree. And their keeper kits, I like these. They were kind of a burnt orange. But it seems like every team in the Southeast is using burnt orange keeper kits this year, except for the Revs and Atlanta SC. But Atlanta SC added the orange to their logo and the booty badge, so you can't really
Yeah.
say anything there.
The yeah, up here, uh, that color is sort of blaze orange, and it's the hunting color. So I remember back in the FC Fargo days, we had our jersey blaze orange because of that. We were trying to appeal to the hunters in the crowd.
Yeah, I remember I hunted up there once, and yeah, you had to use that orange hat, but I get that, but it's kind of weird from a Chattanooga standpoint. I guess it does stand out from the rest of their kits, and it does a good job of marking the goalkeeper on the pitch. I don't think any other team's gonna rock orange kits.
No, I kind of like it. You're right; it sticks out well as well. I just kind of like that color. I don't mind it as a keeper's jersey as well. Again, they kind of need to stick out against whatever kits people are going to be wearing. So I think that does the job. I'm not sure I'd pay $75 for it, which is the price I
I
see
would
on their
definitely
website.
not pay $75 for that.
But there we are.
Wow, that is crazy. I mean, Ford Madison's kits were $75, and I was having a hard time convincing myself to pay that much for a Ford Madison kit, and I think they're sharp, but I would definitely not. I do think though that all Chattanooga FC kits are season ticket passes as well, so I think there's a little extra motivation there.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that certainly would help.
But then again, George Revolution season ticket jerseys are $35, so we have a really good deal down here.
I don't I don't think the Fusion have any jerseys in our store. I'll be corrected if I'm wrong. But last time I looked at it, there weren't any like replica jerseys. I mean,
Yeah, there's been a new trend about season ticket jerseys. I think Asheville City is one of the first clubs to really start doing that passionately and marketing it well. And their first season 3 years ago, they did that, and they sold quite a few hundred of them. And then after that, last year, quite a few teams did it, and it's hard to pick teams that don't do it now. It's more common to have a season ticket jersey than not in the lower divisions these days. So it's kind of cool to see how Astros set the precedent for season ticket jerseys. I think that's a very good idea. It's easy and accessible. You can't really lose it, and you're marketing your team because people are going to wear it, as well as giving them an option to commit to come to the club. So I think it's a great idea. All teams should honestly do that, or a scarf as well. But I think the jersey is better because people can wear that on non-match days.
Yeah, and other times of the year when it's not as much of a problem for you guys down there, but yeah, scarves are kind of an out of season thing in terms of the weather here. Like it gets quite warm in the summer here, but cold in the winter. So you're more likely to be wearing your fusion scarf in the middle of the winter when it's not actually in season. It's kind of a weird dynamic. Whereas a jersey, you can wear it all year round.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that's all of the kits that were released this week. I'm not expecting anything to be released kit wise next week. Maybe a Greenville away jersey, but I think we're edging towards the end of kit season as we know it. So we're gonna actually have to come up with different topics besides what guys are wearing on the pitch. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I'm sure we can think of something. But yeah, it's been nice picking those things apart. Talking of Forward Madison briefly, I'm not a fan of the jagged, edgy, everything on the kit one they just released with I think it's blue, like jagged lines on the pink kit. Didn't like it. It's too busy.
I was surprised by that. I was not expecting them to release another kit. I'm still waiting on their flamingo, preppy-looking frat boy goalkeeper shirt to come in for people to order, and they released another one right off the bat. So I was very surprised because I'm about to buy that goalkeeper kit when it's available to order mid-season.
I got outvoted essentially by the people that I was talking to about that kit. They all loved it, and I was like, "Hang on, there's too much going on." But maybe that's just me.
I mean, it's not a bad kit. It's not ugly. It's not an eyesore, but I wouldn't spend money on it, and we know Ryan definitely wouldn't, even if it was free.
Yeah.
And so, previewing some of the upcoming matchups this week, there's a Tuesday night action as Astros City SC hosts their home opener and their season opener against Inter Nashville. So Inter Nashville is going to get another test early on. We're not sure if they're going to have all their players ready. Asheville City's had their entire roster is going to be ready to go Tuesday. They might have 2 D1 players. I'm not sure when their finals are, so it depends on when they take their finals. They're going to be able to play on May 7th, which is actually tomorrow night. So depending on when this podcast comes out is depending on if the match already happened. But I'm expecting a very good match. I would predict Asheville will take the W there. Inter Nashville did not impress me very much, and Asheville's had a very rigorous preseason, and they have their entire squad ready. So, and plus home field advantage, they have a great atmosphere at Memorial Stadium in downtown Asheville. And then Atlantic City FC, very interesting club to say the least. They're hosting Westchester United SC. Tulsa Athletic are back in action against our good friend Johnny Freedom's and co-host Johnny Freedom's side, FC Wichita, Saturday, May 11th at 2 p.m. So Tulsa get back-to-back home games, and hopefully they can have their field ready in their stadium as FC Wichita. They're going to be in good form. They always are in good form at the beginning of the season because they, like Johnny was saying, they have their indoor players that play with the team throughout the fall, and so they're already in form heading into the beginning of the season. And then Georgia Revolution FC, like I said, they're traveling to Alpharetta to play Atlanta SC. The Central Florida Panthers are hosting Miami United, so Miami United have a chance to continue their run at the top of the table. And then Sioux Falls Thunder FC are taking on SC Aris FC. Tim, I kind of skipped over it earlier, but can you talk about the Duluth Sioux Falls game this past weekend in the NPSL North Conference?
Basically, as kind of predicted, and I'm not blowing my own horn, it's pretty obvious that Duluth are a strong side. they rolled in against a Sioux Falls side that no one knows what to expect from, and left with a 2-0 win that was pretty comfortable from what I gather, and could have been 3 or 4. They hit the post a couple of times. On the other side, Sioux Falls apparently did get pretty close to scoring themselves on a few occasions, but they were just lacking that sharpness that maybe is an early season thing, or maybe it's a reflection of what they'll be like for the entire season. You don't really know at this point going forward. But given Duluth, had shown their strength not that long ago at the end of the last season, getting all the way to the finals, I don't think it's a shock that they beat Sioux Falls. But Sioux Falls having some promise is a good sign that the division might be strong in general to look at. And a couple of guys from Duluth who scored, both were the first goals for the club.
Yeah, it's exciting that the league might be very competitive this season, with Sioux Falls putting up a fight, and obviously Duluth and Minneapolis, and then hopefully Fusion are competitive as well. I think Med City's going to have a good year in the league this year.
Yeah, Med City, they had a good. They were strong at times last season as well. They were strong in being a spoiler, if nothing else. At the end of last season, they showed up and threw a few spanners in the works. And it's another strong market. Rochester has, the core strength population base to be a strong place to recruit players from and to. And so, yeah, I mean, you've got talking of Fusion, actually, it's plausibly going to be an 0-2 start, because the first game that Fusion have is against Minneapolis City on the road, and then they follow up with Duluth at home. Now, that's defending conference champion followed by defending regional champion. Kind of unfair.
Yeah, and back to previewing the games coming up. Denton Diablos FC, they opened their NPSL campaign at home at University of North Texas against Dallas City FC. Dallas City, as we mentioned earlier, got a big win to open up their campaign this year. But Denton Diablos is going to be a fun atmosphere for sure. And then Duluth FC are back in action against the Minnesota Twin Stars FC, which aren't actually called the Minnesota Twin Stars, but it's whatever.
Then yeah, it's a weird one, because they merged with Maplebrook. Maplebrook themselves on social media are marketing it as Maplebrook Twin Stars, but the league still say Minnesota Twin Stars, and their own website still says Minnesota. So there you are. That's the backstory to that. But yeah, I mean, they're an interesting one because of the Maplebrook merger. They could be a complete dumpster fire, or they could be completely reborn, competitive, fighting for everything.
Yeah, it's going to be weird and definitely interesting to keep an eye on. Then I think one of my favorite matchups this weekend is going to be FC Motown are hosting Philadelphia Lone Star. And, of course, Philadelphia Lone Star have some beautiful kits this year. They're debuting. And they have a great system. They really did a good job with infrastructure-wise with their U17 team, their U23 team, and their academy, and their women's side as well. They're treating both sides equally. I'm very excited to see what Philly Lone Star can bring to the table. And FC Motown, they won the conference last year, went deep in the playoffs, and all the way to the championship game, actually. And so seeing what Motown bring to the table in year 2 and what Lone Star can do, I think that's probably my match of the week, to be honest. Then Greenville FC and Asheville. Excuse me, what were we going to say about that game?
I was just going to say Lone Star. Yeah, Lone Star's system, they produced more than a few people that I've actually seen up here. They've got such a strong system. They feed into the entire league, and lots of Liberian guys.
Yeah, their owners are from Liberia, and the team named Lone Star actually kind of plays into that.
Yeah, that's the Lone Star on the flag. It's kind of a play on the US flag, the Liberian flag, just with the 1 star in the corner rather than the 50.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool logo to play homage, but the Carolina Classico this weekend. I'm really looking forward to this game. Greenville FC hosts the first leg of the Classico against Asheville City SC, and we'll see two full rosters. It's going to be a fun game. I cannot wait for this match, to say the least. Hartford City back in action again, and Brooklyn Italians this time. We'll see if they can have another dominant performance like they had the last 2 weekends, and they have scored lots of goals. Hartford have been dominant, but that wraps up this episode. It's a little bit different. We didn't have our entire crew. It's a shorter episode, but thank you guys for listening all the way through. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at RootsUpPod, and check out our U.S. Open Cup episode that's going to be out soon, recapping the first round of the U.S. Open Cup, and then tune in next week when we have a full team discussing all things NPSL, USL League 2, and the lower divisions.